The Multimedia Ninja Podcast, episode 57. Hello again, and welcome to the Multimedia Ninja Podcast, where it's all about surviving and thriving in the digital convergence. My name is Bradford Rogers, and I'll be interviewing some multimedia ninjas who are making things happen in their respective fields and sharing tips, tools, and insights for multimedia artists and content creators. As always, you can find show notes at themultimedianinja.com. This week, Mr. Steve Dancz. As you may know, in this podcast series, my friends and I will be talking about all things multimedia, including creativity, shaping your ideas, and how to be more productive doing it, regardless of what kind of content you're creating. We have got an exciting episode for you today, so what do you say we just let's get to it? All right, yeah, we'll get right into it because we have a guest who's here in the studio for a rapid amount of time, Mr. Steve Dancz. Hopefully you remember him from episode 2, and I encourage you to check it out. If you haven't already, that would be one of our early audio-only episodes, but you can go to themultimedianinja.com/2, and I believe you're also making an appearance in episode 11, which would be themultimedianinja.com/11. But anyway, you're here now, and This is good with all the hashtagging I've been doing lately about digital nomadry, or hashtag digital nomad, because like myself and like some of our other guests, and you have spent a lot of time in the past as a digital nomad and doing some remote work and all that kind of stuff. So
I have. It's been a very kind of recurring theme in my life.
Right. I think when you contacted me for the most recent project here that we just worked on, I was in another country.
You were. I believe, as I remember, you were going to Cuba, were you not?
Yes. That was very interesting trip.
Ooh, I'll say.
Nice water. But you've actually done the nautical thing as well. Tell me about that.
When I was 19, I got hired to work as a musical director for several different entertainers that ended up doing long tours on cruise ships. So got to see a lot of the planet by ship.
Always smooth water, I'm sure.
That's the idea, but okay. The reality is not quite always like that. We ended up a couple times where you have those feelings where you would pay literally anything to get off.
Right.
Typhoon once off of China, and a couple little things, but for the most part, it was really amazing.
What's the biggest waves you've seen in the,
oh my God.
You think?
Well, by that,
Probably the typhoon.
Probably so, and companies like that, they go to great lengths not to be in those places. Mm-hmm. You really don't want to be there, but it just happens sometimes. Storms change direction, things come up, whatever. But, you would be down below and just kind of waiting for the end, and you're not sure quite what the end's going to be like. But when the guys come in with the big steel things to clamp down the Steinway, it's not looking good for the next 12 hours.
Clamp down the Steinway, boys. It's getting a little rough.
That's it, exactly.
But I don't know if I mentioned this on my Cuba podcast, but on the way back, it got a little rough. It started out, 3 or 4 foot waves, which I had some video of, but then in like 3 o'clock in the morning, when I was almost up to Key West, they were like taller than the studio room here.
Oof.
And I did not hurl, but I had to I would stand up. I was grabbing the rail, and I'd be kind of at an angle, and my left foot would get tired from all that, and then I'd go sit in the corner of the cockpit up near the bulkhead near the companionway for looking up, because I was down on the leeward side, and I was looking up at the waves coming on, and I gave me a chance to sit down, but in a minute or two, I was getting queasy. I'm like, I got to go stand up again real quick.
Yeah. Are you like strapped in? Are you like on a line at that point?
I have a vest that has a line.
Okay.
And it can be clipped to things solid. If it had been just a little bit rougher, I would have clipped to something.
Yeah.
Or if I, for God forbid, had to go up and do something with the sails at the mast or something.
Yeah, you'd clip.
Or worse yet, forward on the bow, which probably wouldn't happen. You can clip. It actually has 2 clips. So before you unclip, you clip to the next thing. But I did have my Spot satellite transmitters clipped to my vest.
Okay.
Along with a strobe. So if I went over, I was going to launch that baby or push the help me.
Help me now, please.
Push the ocean button. Yeah. But anyway, it was great fun. So
sounds like a great trip. I mean, a little high water, you got a small price to pay, right, for an amazing time?
Absolutely. It's the Wi-Fi down there isn't great, but the sun sure is.
Yeah.
But we just to make an abrupt halt, we actually were working on a project now that I came back. You were doing a cool recording project with our friend TK on something you wrote.
Yep.
And that's a top secret mission at the moment, but it's very cool stuff. And I guess I can divulge that you had me do the CD design for it.
Yeah.
That via Upwork even,
yeah,
which is cool.
Absolutely. That's a great thing because as much as both of us are sometimes elsewhere, it's Upwork is always there.
And by the way, you can still find me if you need work done, and Upwork is the portal through which it would be done, but I wouldn't want to give a plug or anything. So
no, don't do that.
Disregard that. But it is interesting, though, that I got suspended from Upwork while I was in Cuba for logging on from Cuba, which was kind of a pain in the rear.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I finally got some tech support. I think I had to wait till I got back to Florida because I couldn't contact anybody. And they said, you can't log on from Crimea. And I said, no, not Crimea. I was in Cuba. And they said, oh, yeah, that Cuba either.
Another C word. It's one of those.
Right. It's one of those, North Korea, Crimea, Cuba.
Yeah.
So on this project, I gather you've had some new toys or virtual toys, and those fall into our segment that we call "What the Heck Are You Doing?" wherein we ask our guest what piece of hardware, software, what tip, trick, or technique or philosophy is rocking hard for you today, this week, this month, this year, this lifetime. And you have, I understand, some new soft toys.
Yeah, I think the thing that's making my little heart sing these days is the C7 sample from Keyscapes,
which I can tell you is strong from this recording that I just heard.
It's a great company, Spectrasonics. Eric Pershing. If you don't know Eric Pershing out there, look him up. He's got just an amazing history, and the projects that he's been on, from working with Roland on just for decades, really. Started his own company called Spectrasonics. I think the first thing they came out with might have been RMX. It might have been the drum package. Then they did and again, I might be getting the order wrong. They had a multi-deep synth called Atmosphere, which has now been supplanted by Omnisphere,
which I have.
Yeah. And the bass
Trillion
package, which started out as Trilogy, which is now Trillion, and then just released, I think, in November, December, whatever it was, is Keyscapes, which is just an absolutely just beautiful collection of classic keyboards, multiple variations on the Rhodes family, Wurlitzer, grand pianos, toy pianos. I mean, literally, it's a hoot what's in there. And when you look at the videos of what they did, I mean, they disassembled half of these instruments and built them back, and just cleaned, and just a beautiful level of execution on this stuff. But the sounds are just impeccable. And the thing that let me know that it really was okay was I had done this project I'm doing is basically a song I was commissioned to write a song, a single song for an event, and that's about all I can say about that part of it. But at the end, I decided it's going to be piano, vocal, and decided to use a bass. So I wanted to cut with Tom Kidd at Silent Sound, and
yes,
El Presidente,
yes,
and he has a C7.
Yes, I photographed it.
It's a beautiful
for the website.
Beautiful piano, and but just with time being the way it was, and et cetera, I wanted to make sure we had loads of time to work on the vocal. So having just gotten keyscapes, and the first time I put on the C7, I was like, wow, this is different from anything and believe me, I've had a bunch of grand piano samples over the years being a pianist, but this one has a depth and a warmth and how it fades out is just so anyway, I laid down the piano part, took it in, and TK lined it up, put it out. I didn't really tell him what it was or anything, and he turns in and says, what is this? What
freaking piano was this?
So that was so we that's what we ended up keeping it. Yeah, because it sounds great. And I spent a lot of time on the track, and the great one of the nice things about the sample is it really it allows itself to be nuanced in a way. And there's sounds in the samples that anytime you sit on a grand piano, I mean there's stuff moving. There's dampers moving and pedals moving and metal going up and down, and there's sounds in these samples, the keyscape thing. So it's very much not a kind of antiseptic, totally clean thing, but it just sounds incredibly natural.
Wow.
It's really fun. So. And
you got a couple of orchestral packages too.
I did. I got some of the Spitfire symphonic libraries, the string stuff. I've had VSL for a while, and have just really been knocked out over the last several years, really, with what Spitfire's doing, and finally, was able to get some of their library, and I've been hearing great things, and just in my research about the Cinesamples, especially their solo strings or solo instruments. It's the solo strings that I bought.
Gotcha.
And because I like to do sometimes smaller ensembles of instruments and strings and whatever. So sometimes it's nice to have a big huge orchestra, but sometimes you can get a lot of emotional depth out of less, actually, sometimes. So it's nice to have a palette. But I'm still a Logic user. I just it's such a powerful program to me. I mean, for the kind of things that I do, writing to picture, scoring, or just doing standalone, audio or music, it's just, it's amazing to me.
I meant to ask, and I hope I didn't ask you in episode 2, but when you're scoring, you're obviously using Logic. Do you use, first of all, do you write in notational form things first? And if not, what, how shall I say, how do you get it out of Logic or do you use an internal, I can't even remember if there is an internal. Don't they have some remedial sort of Sibelius?
No, it's actually powerful. I've got a dear friend who's done huge, massive symphonic stuff, oratorios with 100-piece chorus and 100-piece orchestra completely in Logic. Parts, printing, score, bind it up, everything. It's really powerful. Not a lot of people understand it very well. There is a really great composer arranger out in LA that's written a book on the scoring part of Logic. And again, it's just one little piece of this powerful program is the printing part. But to answer your question, depending on what the type of piece is, I mean, if it's a real groove-oriented thing that's totally rhythmic driven anyway, maybe I won't go this route. But on virtually everything else, I mean, I sit down with a pencil and a piece of manuscript paper and sit at the Steinway, because that's where stuff just comes through, and it's such a neutral palette.
So you're actually part writing at the piano with pencil and paper.
Yeah.
Who knew? I didn't realize that.
Well, and what's funny is that, now, you're mocking stuff up almost immediately, so it doesn't stay in that form very often, but it's really fun to just sit at an acoustic instrument and just, get the notes out. Now it'll be interesting, as I travel more and, with the C7,
right.
I'll probably do the same thing. So the orchestration comes later. Just getting the notes down happens first.
Oh, I'm glad I asked. I totally didn't realize that's the way you went about it. I figured you were looking at Logic either at a piano roll or, type of deal, or at possibly the score editor while you're playing piano or something, versus actually playing keyboard versus actually sitting at a piano and writing things down.
Yeah, well, that's the best case scenario, what I just said. Right. And if I'm not around the piano or I can't get there, whatever, there's multiple ways to have things happen. And just like I'm sure you do when you're in songwriting mode or writing mode, whether you're when you're getting thematic material together, you just pick up the phone and sing, just to grab stuff that comes in and then transcribe it later. It's whatever gets the job done.
I have trouble getting a piano on the boat, so that's problematic a little bit. Well, speaking of digital nomadry, you have spent some time in Tibet, among other things. You did a record, you did some companion music to sacred sites of the Dalai Lama, and you can hear more about that on episode 2 at the multimedianinja.com/2. But at the moment, we're going to take a short pause and play you out with on the Drepung. I keep messing it up. Drepung
roof.
This is a loop. I keep messing that up too. A loop from On the Drepung Roof. We're going to leave you with a few seconds of that, and we'll be back. Oh, yeah, that was nice. That was nice. I enjoy that as always, and I'll give a blanket statement that if you ever hear that in one of the podcasts, that is a loop from Steve Dantz's music, and
thank you.
You can thank him for that. Speaking of Tibet, I had asked you offline if you were doing any mindfulness or meditation practice.
Yeah, I was very fortunate early on to be exposed through some people that I was actually making music with, and it happened to be the first group that I worked with on the ship. You're living in very close quarters, and such, and there were just some really amazing people that were making music with me, and as I got to know them a little bit, they were all into various different things, and I was exposed to meditation. And when I came back to Athens, Georgia, where I was living after my time on the ship, I met another musician who was I was an undergraduate, first year actually when I went back to school, and this guy was a psychology student, a doctoral student, and we started talking, one night at the gig, and he had been practicing for a while, and he told me about a retreat that was going on, and would I like to go out to? It actually was at Hemes Bodhi Mandala, which is up in the mountains in New Mexico, Zen monastery up there. And I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. So we stopped and kind of did the Grand Canyon on the way out, but then did I think it was a 10-day retreat with Jack Cornfield, who I didn't know anybody in the field at all. I was literally brand new, and just kind of coming to it with that kind of basis, of doing a retreat, kind of almost starting with a retreat, was really powerful, and it just has been something that's just been a pretty major part of my, kind of daily thing for ever since then. I was, I guess, 19 when that happened, and I'm not anymore.
But you're close. You're close to it. Yeah. I've actually, as I mentioned offline, that I've been using Headspace, which I was a little skeptical about, because it's a guided meditation that you can. There's some free free samples, 10 for 10-minute sessions, and I'll put a link on that in the episode here if you're interested. But it's a guided thing, and I thought, well, isn't that kind of counter to the whole idea of meditation to have somebody yammering at you while you're meditating? But as it turns out, the gentleman is not yammering, and it's actually, I found it to be really well thought out, and I need to meditate today. But it's definitely given me starting to give me a little more relaxation, a little more ability to detach from things that may cause certain emotional responses that are not always productive.
Yeah.
And the ability to take things in flow as they come along, and also to stay focused a little more, and focus but flow in your work, and which is easy to become unfocused when you're doing the multimedia ninja thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So when you're in a thing, you need to kind of stay on that thing. Yeah. And then shut that window and open another one, and not trying to do everything at once, or because multitasking is a myth, they say.
Yeah. Well, and I think most of us know at a certain point we're not doing as well as we could be doing on one thing when we're trying to do three things. And I think, from just the societal point of view, I mean, there's just so much coming at us at any given time that sometimes just to really be able to kind of center is just a really helpful thing. And, I'd like to say that, after what is that, almost 40 years of doing this, that, I never, get angry anymore. I don't ever get impatient anymore. But, that's not the truth.
Right.
But the truth is that I tend to maybe come back from it quicker, or at least when it's over, I would, tend to be more laughing at myself than anything else. And you just having the presence of being, in the moment, or being present for this moment, I think is one of the seemingly most difficult things to do in life, but yet it's also one of the most rewarding. And it's not like there's anything anywhere else that's any more interesting than what's going on right now if you're present.
Right.
And so that's kind of what I'm finding has been the most helpful with all of this over the years.
Yeah, I never get angry anymore either. Right. I actually, though, I had a case the other day where, quite recently, where I had a client who I thought was perhaps a little mistaken and simultaneously unreasonable about something, and I drafted an email basically bowing out of the project before it started, and I put that in my thankfully first I made sure that the addressee was not in the to line of the email, and then I put it in my drafts folder, and I said I should probably just I've said what I need to say. I didn't send it, but I'm going to just store it here, and I'm going to contemplate before I go pee in the well. And as it turns out, things worked out quite well, and thankfully I had enough patience not to send it right then. And that's a great idea, not to put the name in the to line, because we have all hit somehow had that our finger slide across that button and went, oh, rats. I actually stole from the idea from Abe Lincoln, not the email part, but he was there was some general, maybe it was McClellan or something, that wasn't doing what he said to do, and he apparently wrote him a scathing letter, but then he put it in the desk drawer and never sent it. But apparently he felt better. So
that's great, and I think too what sitting does, meditation, whatever, and it's not just sitting. That's the thing. It's really bringing it into whatever it is you're doing.
Don't try it driving so much.
Though, I find that, because in many places I go, you spend a lot of time in the car, and when you're sitting at red lights and stuff, instead of, spinning out on whatever it is, you just be present.
Listen to the podcast.
You feel your hands on the wheel and your butt in the chair and your feet on the floor, and it's like, wow, it's just like bringing it back to right now. And then for most of us, there's really not a problem right now. There's usually things right now are
Right.
And that tends to be a way to, and I think that's why meditation has been shown, to be calming and basically even healing for the for the body in ways that, are just now being able to kind of be quantified, which is interesting.
Speaking of remote stuff, you're around Atlanta a lot, but nonetheless, you are doing a lot of work with the Kennesaw State University with their online learning program, if I put that correctly.
Yeah, the distance learning, I think, is the generic name, but their Kennesaw takes their online teaching and their online courses really seriously. Mm-hmm. And I was first asked to teach on campus, and just through some traveling and other things that were going on, they asked me if I would take the courses that I was teaching and develop them as online courses. And the first thing you have to do as a faculty member is take an online course, and actually you have to get certified to be able to do it. So it was fascinating to be able to take an online course, and one that serves as a fantastic model. I mean, it's taught by people that do this, and they have all the latest research about how people learn, and this whole notion of, okay, I'm going to stick up an hour and a half lecture and then put a test up and I'm done. It's like that's not really the most effective way for learning to happen. So I've been really impressed because I've known a lot of students that have taken online courses from universities either around Georgia or in other places, and sometimes the experience is less than fabulous.
Is there anybody on the other end of this thing?
That's how the students often feel.
Right.
The professor is off, whatever they're doing. And they're just not responsive. And then part of the thing that Kennesaw really instilled in me going through this program is just how important it is to be responsive. And I've got a 24-hour response time that I give myself. So within 24 hours, you're going to hear back from me. 48 hours on a weekend, which is totally deluxe. And to me, I never put the phone down anyway. So my response time tends to be pretty quick. But it's really fun. I'm teaching 2 courses. I'm teaching a scoring for media course.
Nice.
And then I'm teaching an entrepreneurship for musicians course, which both of those topics are, near and dear to my heart.
Right.
They're kind of both are in my wheelhouse. And
I'd love to see your syllabus sometime.
Yeah. Well, they're really, I got to say they're really well done. There's and this is, I'm not taking credit for anything other than just paying attention and doing. In terms of the design and the development, if you do things in a certain way, you just end up with a really good course. And having taught on campuses for 30 years, this may be some of the best teaching I've ever done. So it's kind of interesting.
Talking with you, I got the sense that you definitely spent some heavy effort in the design and development part.
It's intense. I mean, it really is. You just can't imagine. Because a lot of it is just the way things are organized. You put things in. You're able. You need to say things sometimes multiple times in iterations that, so you don't just give an important date or a time one time and let it go. You put it in, the week overview. You put it in the update video for the week. You put it in the assignment itself. Then you put it in the checklist at the end.
Right.
So there's virtually no way you can miss a date and miss an assignment, but that's smart. I mean, we all need extra help on stuff like that. And again, having taken the course, you realize that there's a lot coming at you.
Right.
And actually both of these courses have, there's a lot of moving parts, but I really think they're organized in such a way that they're really effective. I mean, I've had good feedback from them. And so,
by the way, that reminds me, and I'll just jump to our segment that I like to call Winners and Losers. And this week's winners, I'd like to say, are your Kennesaw State University students who are watching and or listening to the Multimedia Ninja podcast.
Winner!
I understand you may have given them a heads up on it.
Yeah, well, it was actually part of their assignment in the scoring class. In the scoring class, we deal with film, TV, gaming, commercials, whatever, and we talk about a lot of different kind of mediums within which scoring happens. And I actually, I love the podcast that you did with Chris Rickwood. It's a two-parter. Yes. And that's part of their required listening, basically talking about audio environments in game creation.
Awesome. Well, that is very cool. Well, sad to say that just about wraps it up for this episode of the Multimedia Ninja Podcast. I hope you'll come back next week and bring your friends. Thanks to Mr. Steve Dancz for being here with us today.
Thank you, Bradford. A pleasure, as always.
Don't forget you can subscribe to the Multimedia Ninja email list right there on the website. Just go there and you'll see a red thing somewhere. Scroll down to the bottom if you need to. You can, of course, subscribe on iTunes at themultimedianinja.com/subscribe. And, of course, you can see the video versions and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Probably there'll be a thing right at the end of this episode to click and do these things as well. But with that, I will let you get back to being creative. We'll see you next week and do some good stuff. Hasta pronto. Wow, that was
nice.
That will be something, I swear.